So your bags are packed and you're ready to hit the sky for a flight to Israel. And you're wondering exactly what you should do before you go. Well, in this series of useful tips, I will be sharing with you all the things that you need to know to make your trip memorable, affordable, and the places you would love to go and to check out while you're on your adventure. So, in this particular episode, we're going to discuss traveling the Israeli airport. Okay, so, personally, I have had a different experience in traveling the Israeli airport than some of those who have come with us separately to Israel. Amazingly, traveling to Israel, I have had very few stops in terms of going through the airport and being placed, aside to have a long, lengthy interrogation of any sort. And I just praise Yah for that, because making so many trips as we have made, especially multiple trips in 1 year, it does, or it could lend itself to major red flags. Fortunately, however, this has not been our case, and I will share with you some of the things I think that makes a difference in how we are perceived. Now, coming into Israel, obviously you have more of an advantage in terms of it being a lot smoother for you to get through, to get into the land. And, primarily because of where you're coming from, which is the United States. And another advantage is that if you are a U.S. citizen and you do not have any sort of Palestinian background. Now, I also am not a Muslim, so I can imagine that if I were, the possibility for my experience being what it is could be drastically different. And so I do say that if you are of an Islamic background, then you may find this trip to be a little bit different in terms of your experience. However, as a Christian or a follower of Messiah, Yeshua, I have had no such problems entering into the land of Israel. I have not been stopped unduly or frisked unreasonably for any type of reason. It's actually been a very smooth transition, both coming and going. The greater risk, especially when you're traveling the way we're traveling as opposed to traveling in a group, because one of the questions that do come up, obviously, when you're coming through customs is going to be, what's the reason for why we're visiting, where we're going to be staying. These are questions that you should expect that they're going to ask. And usually for us, it's a very easy one to answer because we are visiting, we are vacationing, we're coming to celebrate the feast. And usually we always make sure we spend several days in Jerusalem, and we spend multiple days in the Israeli territories. However, we also spend time in the Palestinian territories. A lot of the holy sites are in the Palestinian territories. So, being able to have access to those areas are key to give homage to our Creator and the family He chose to use, which is Abraham and his seed.
Your greatest challenge is probably going to be found in your returning home. If you are one who stays in Palestinian territories, when you go to Israel, then one of the things you want to be careful about is paying close attention to who it is who brings you to the airport. If you're coming in a licensed taxi that is licensed for Israeli areas, then it doesn't usually cause any kind of red flags. Palestinian drivers or Palestinians typically have their own type of tags, and they are not even allowed to come through Jerusalem. Those vehicles wouldn't even be allowed to come on that side, so you don't have to worry about that. But you do have Palestinians who live in Jerusalem, and they are taxi cab drivers, and they have the flexibility and the capability of going in between both Israel and Palestine without any issues. So more than likely, your taxi cab driver, if you're staying in a Palestinian area on the night of your departure or the day that you will be leaving to depart, if you elect or if you have to take the option of going by taxi, because there are other options to getting to the airport, and we will discuss those options in a subsequent video and a subsequent tip. But if you take the option of going in a vehicle that has a Palestinian driver and that uses a specific tag that they have, license tag that they have, then there's certain procedures or protocols that you need to be aware of. Number one, you want to maintain professionalism. So, if you have one of those jovial personalities, which I have to admit I am guilty of, you want to keep that to a minimum when you get to the airport. Part of the responsibility of security is to look at anything that seems like it could be inappropriate behavior. And the idea that you might be in some sort of cahoots, there might be some sort of plot or plan on your end to cause some sort of problems is something that they are trained to look out for. So if you don't want to have to spend a lot of time explaining your conversation to TSA, then my recommendation would be to just, get your bags. You don't want to do what we normally would probably do. In our culture, you don't want to be passing money once you get out of the taxi. Make sure any business in terms of what you owe them, that you take care of that and you secure that before you get out of the taxi. They get your bags out, you let them go. You might want to say bye, but you don't want to shake any hands because that can be construed as they're passing you something. And so it just can cause you other problems. So you want to be very professional in how you handle the communication between you and your taxi driver if you have a Palestinian taxi driver. Also, you want to make sure that you don't take anything out your bag. Pack your bag the way you want it the night before. A good note to take careful attention on is if you are going through, because of a new U.S. policy by President Trump, if you are going through a Middle Eastern country as a layover back home, you will not be allowed to carry on any electronics that are larger than a phone. So if you have a tablet, if you have a laptop and you're going to be going through Jordan before you get back, or you're going to be going through Turkey or any place like that before you return to the U.S., then your best bet is to just go on ahead while you're in Israel, because you won't have any problems from Israel to the next layover that you have. Your problem is going to be from the layover that you have back home. And so once you take that stuff out the bag, then now, other people see it. So it's just better, it's safer, more secure to just put it in your check bag anyway. That way you don't have to go through that whole process of switching things out. So we've actually had things missing by doing that. So cameras are another thing that might become problematic with carrying on board when you're going through certain layover locations. So that being the case, then that's just a little side note to make sure that you pack your bag in such a way that you do not have to go back in it before just at all. When you get to the airport, your bags need to be exactly the way you want them. Everything needs to be in position. You don't need to be going in, taking something out, putting it into another bag, because that can be considered or construed as being suspicious. So you want to kind of be leery of suspicious behavior or activity. Because even though you may, which hopefully none of my readers or listeners are terrorists, so you may not have any wrong intentions, but think of it this way. They're doing it for your protection. You want to make sure that whoever's on the plane doesn't have any ill motives. And so they do it as a precaution. Now, could it be considered a little bit extreme? Perhaps, but let's consider this. We have not had any terrorists take over planes from Israel. So apparently their system works. So anyway, those are just things that you need to take note of when you're traveling in Israel. Again, as I stated from the beginning, when you're coming into Israel, you'll probably receive less problems. The only thing you have to be ready to do is to answer a question as to why you're visiting and where you may be going. But aside from that, it's a pretty smooth transition coming into the land. Now, if you have had a different experience, I would be more than glad to hear more about it. So please leave your comments if there's anything I might need to add to the video, if there's any tips that you might want to suggest that the World Wide Web will be able to benefit from for making travel easy, smooth, and enjoyable, then please feel free to leave a comment. I thank you for listening to my travel tip and hope you will be traveling soon in the friendly skies. Shalom.